I'm here to help you fall asleep tonight. Before we begin, like the video, subscribe, and tell me where are you watching from and what time is it there. Now, get comfortable, relax, and let the story carry you into the night.
The Girl in the Garden. Chapter 1. The Grave on Maple Lane. Brookfield Hills was the kind of place people forgot. A quiet suburb, neat lawns, old trees lining cracked sidewalks, and secrets buried deeper than the roots beneath them. It was just after dawn when the call came in. A demolition crew sent to clear the Hartwell property on Maple Lane had found something they weren't prepared for. Behind the house, forgotten, overgrown, was the remains of a garden, and there, beneath a patch of disturbed soil, a shallow grave. Detective Lisa Grady was the first to arrive. The house loomed behind her, peeling paint, shattered windows, silent as a tomb. The grave was small, the earth dark and wet, the bones fragile. A skull half buried, tangled in what was left of long, dark hair. The crime scene team worked in hushed voices, careful, methodical. And then, the first real clue. A silver locket, heart-shaped, resting where the throat would have been. Simple, worn. 2 engraved letters, M.L. By mid-morning, yellow tape marked the edge of the property. Neighbors gathered on porches, whispering. Reporters circled. The Hartwell house had always been a place of stories. Now it had one more. The medical examiner took the remains. No ID, no purse, no wallet. Only the locket. Only the initials. At the precinct, Lisa and her partner, Ron Mercer, sat with the facts. The house had been empty for more than 15 years. The last owner, Walter Hartwell, dead. No family, no tenants, no visitors anyone could remember. The autopsy gave them little. Female, teenage, dead for at least 20 years. No obvious cause, no trauma to the bones. But one thing was clear. The grave hadn't been dug by accident. And someone, sometime, had wanted this girl forgotten. Lisa stared at the locket that night. Tiny, faded. Inside, a black and white photo of a girl, smiling, a face lost to time. The case wasn't just a recovery anymore. It was a mystery. And it was only just beginning. Chapter 2. The Girl in the Locket. The photo was small, a black and white snapshot, no bigger than a postage stamp, faded at the edges. A girl, maybe 16, dark hair, a slight uncertain smile, eyes that seemed to look right through the years. Lisa studied it in the dim light of her office. The locket lay open on the desk between stacks of old files, missing persons reports, school records, runaway lists from 20 years back. None of them matched. No one had reported a girl like this. No one had come looking. Scene: the precinct late night. Ron Mercer stepped into the room, coffee in hand. He set the cup down and leaned over Lisa's shoulder. "Any luck?" Lisa shook her head. "She had to belong somewhere," Ron said quietly. "Someone must have missed her." Lisa didn't answer. She traced the edge of the locket with her thumb, thinking, M.L. It's all we've got. The next morning, they were back on Maple Lane, knocking on doors, asking questions. Most neighbors had lived there for decades. They remembered the house. They remembered Walter Hartwell. But the girl, no one knew her. Until they reached Mrs. Hatcher, an elderly woman, thin as a rail, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She invited them in, sat them at her kitchen table, poured tea from a cracked pot, and then she said it. "I remember a girl." Lisa and Ron exchanged a glance. "She used to be in the garden," Mrs. Hatcher said, voice soft. "Long hair, always by herself. This was, long ago now." "Did you know her name?" Lisa asked. "No," Mrs. Hatcher said. "I thought she was Mr. Hartwell's niece, or maybe a housekeeper's daughter. She seemed sad, always sad." The report went up on the board. A timeline began to form. A girl seen in the garden, a grave hidden there for decades, no record of a niece, no family tied to the house, just a locket, just initials. Lisa stared at the photo again that night. Who was she? Why was she there? And who buried her, hoping she'd never be found? 2 days later, a call came in. A retired teacher. He'd seen the news, and he remembered a student, Marina Lane. Disappeared the same year the medical examiner estimated the girl had died. A runaway, they said, at the time. No one looked for long. Lisa felt her pulse quicken. M.L. Marina Lane. The case that had started as a mystery was becoming a story of a girl no one remembered, a grave no one expected to find, and a town about to face the secrets it had buried. Chapter 3. Marina Lane. Marina Lane, the name echoed in Lisa's mind as she pulled the old missing persons report from the archives. The file was thin, barely a few pages, a black and white photo, a brief description, and a single statement from a foster parent who had reported her gone. Marina had been 16 when she vanished, a ward of the state, no known relatives. The foster home described her as quiet, withdrawn, and prone to running off for a day or two before returning. But that time, she hadn't come back, and after a few weeks, the case faded from memory. The more Lisa read, the more the pieces seemed to fit. Marina had lived just 10 miles from Brookfield Hills. The photo in the file, dark hair, slight build, the same uncertain smile as in the locket. It had to be her. Lisa and Ron dug deeper. They interviewed the former foster parents, who now lived out of state. They spoke to social workers who barely remembered the girl. No one had any idea why Marina would have ended up at the Hartwell house. No one even recalled her having any connection to Brookfield Hills at all. But Lisa felt certain they were on the right track. She requested DNA comparison between the remains and samples from Marina's childhood medical records. The wait would take weeks, but in her gut, she knew. The girl in the garden was Marina Lane. And as the investigation continued, the question became, what had drawn Marina to that abandoned house, and who had killed her? Chapter 4. The House. The Hartwell house had stood empty for nearly 2 decades, but it still held its secrets. Lisa and Ron returned with a search warrant and a forensic team. The place felt frozen in time, dust thick on every surface, wallpaper peeling, furniture covered with tattered sheets. In the back, near the garden, They found remnants of an old shed, collapsed under its own weight. Inside, broken tools, rusted cans, and, beneath the debris, a hidden compartment in the floorboards. Inside the compartment were papers, receipts, letters, and a faded photograph. The photo showed Walter Hartwell, the former owner, standing with a teenage girl who bore a striking resemblance to Norina. The back of the photo was labeled simply Summer 1993. Lisa stared at it, chilled. If Walter knew Marina, why had no one ever mentioned it? And what was their relationship? The letters revealed more. Correspondence between Walter and an unknown woman discussing a girl named M. There were hints of a troubled situation, of secrecy, and of guilt. The letters ended abruptly in late 1993, the same time Marina disappeared. Walter Hartwell was dead, but his secrets were not. The house had given up its first clue, and it pointed to something far darker than anyone expected. Chapter 4.
The sea wind was sharp that evening, carrying the salty tang of the Atlantic as it whipped through the seaside town of Norwood. The cliffs, a jagged boundary between land and ocean, were bathed in the pale glow of the setting sun. It was the kind of night when most people stayed indoors, fires lit, curtains drawn. But Emily Crane wasn't most people. At 29, Emily was well known in Norwood. A beloved school teacher, she had taught at Norwood Elementary for 5 years, inspiring her students with warmth and patience. She volunteered at the library, organized food drives, and helped at the animal shelter on weekends. Emily Crane was, by all accounts, the kind of person who seemed untouched by darkness. That night, Emily set out for her usual jog along the cliffs, something she did to clear her mind after long days. She wore her navy running jacket, reflective stripes catching the last of the daylight, and her worn sneakers beat a steady rhythm on the dirt path. Locals who saw her remembered her smile and wave. "Evening, Em," an old fisherman called. She waved back, earbuds in, the music faintly audible as she passed. It was the last time anyone saw Emily Crane alive. When Emily didn't return home, her roommate, Lisa, grew concerned. At first, she dismissed the worry. Maybe Emily had run longer than usual or stopped to chat with someone. But when night fell and her calls went unanswered, Lisa's unease turned to fear. By midnight, police were searching the cliffs. They found Emily's car parked where she always left it, keys still dangling from the ignition, driver's door ajar. Her phone lay on the seat, screen cracked as if it had been dropped in haste. No blood, no signs of a struggle, no footprints beyond her own, fading into the wind-swept dirt of the trail. The cliffs loomed ominously in the moonlight. Detective Alex Greer, recently promoted and new to Norwood, was called in. Tall, with sharp features and a reputation for thoroughness, Greer stood at the trailhead, scanning the scene. The ocean roared below, waves smashing against the rocks. "It could be a fall," one officer said. Greer shook his head. "And leave the car running? Drop the phone inside the vehicle? Doesn't fit." They scoured the cliffs with spotlights, but no body was found. By dawn, word of Emily's disappearance had spread. The town gathered at the cliffs, shock etched on every face. Search parties formed, boats combed the shoreline, drones flew over the waves. And that's when the first clue emerged. A teenager named Leo Finch, known for hanging around the cliffs with his camera, approached Greer hesitantly.
I saw her, Leo stammered. And someone else. Greer's gaze sharpened. When? Where? Last night, maybe 10 minutes before sunset. Emily was running, and this guy, he was just following her. Kept his distance, but he was there. I didn't think much of it at the time. Can you describe him? Leo swallowed hard. Tall, dark hoodie. I couldn't see his face. I thought maybe he was just another runner. Greer took the statement seriously. He ordered canvassing of nearby homes and businesses for security footage. Officers went door to door seeking witnesses. But no one else had seen the hooded figure. As day turned to night again, Greer stood at the edge of the cliffs, wind whipping his coat. Something felt off about this case. A woman like Emily didn't just vanish. And whoever had followed her into the dusk was still out there. Chapter 2. The search widens. By the second morning, Norwood was gripped by unease. Search parties grew larger, volunteers combing the cliffs, the dense woods beyond, and the beaches below. The Coast Guard deployed boats, and a helicopter circled for hours, its searchlight sweeping across the angry gray sea. Detective Alex Greer worked without sleep, driven by a mix of duty and gnawing dread. Emily Crane's case had already attracted media attention, and the pressure mounted. The sight of her abandoned car haunted him. Keys dangling, door ajar, phone cracked as if it had been dropped in haste. The hooded figure Leo Finch reported weighed on his mind. Greer pored over hours of security footage from shops and homes along the cliff road. At last, he found a blurry clip from a gas station, a tall figure in a hoodie walking along the coastal path just before dusk. The image was too grainy for ID, but it confirmed Leo's story. At Emily's school, Greer spoke with colleagues. "She mentioned being watched," said a fellow teacher. "Said someone had followed her car once, but she laughed it off." Her roommate, Lisa, added another layer. "She fought hard against Mark Halden, the developer pushing to build luxury condos on the cliffs. She stood up at meetings, organized protests. He hated her for it." When questioned, Halden smirked. "I have nothing to do with this. I don't care about some jogger, and I was at a dinner that night." But his alibi was thin. No one at the dinner remembered seeing him arrive or leave. Chapter 3. The Hidden Threat. On the third day, the station received an anonymous letter. "Stop digging, or someone else falls." The letter was typed, no prints, no envelope. Greer felt the chill of its message. Someone was watching. Rick Colton, the disgraced ex-cop who'd returned to Norwood, came under suspicion. Emily had reportedly clashed with him at meetings about police oversight. Greer visited his small, run-down home. "You think I'm involved?" he barked. "People disappear around here. You think the cliffs are innocent?" No alibi, no witnesses to vouch for him. Then came a break. Leo brought in photos from the night Emily vanished. Among them, Greer spotted a dark SUV parked near the cliffs, partly hidden in brush. A check of traffic cams showed a black SUV with covered plates entering Norwood that evening. Someone had stalked Emily, and Greer was closing in. Chapter 4. A Town on Edge. The town of Norwood changed in the days following Emily's disappearance. Parents kept their children indoors. Shops closed early. The once busy cliff paths were deserted. Greer worked the case relentlessly. He traced the black SUV to a rental under a fake name, paid for in cash. He mapped out sightings of the vehicle and noticed a pattern. It had been seen multiple times over the past month, always near places Emily frequented. Meanwhile, Lisa admitted something that deepened the mystery. "She got flowers delivered," she said, voice shaking. "No card, just roses, every week for a month." Greer obtained security footage from the florist. Caught on camera was a man in a ball cap and sunglasses paying cash. The figure's build matched both Halden and Colton. The pieces of the puzzle darkened. Whoever had taken Emily had been planning it. Chapter 5. A Body Found. On day 8, the town's worst fear came true. A fisherman discovered a body washed up on the shore 5 miles down the coast. Emily. The medical examiner determined she had died from blunt force trauma, not a fall. She had fought back, scratches on her arms, skin under her nails. The discovery shattered Norwood. Vigils filled the square, candles burned along the cliffs. Greer stood by the sea that night, vowing silently, "I will find who did this." Chapter 6. The Net Tightens. Forensics from under Emily's nails provided the first real break: male DNA. It didn't match anyone in law enforcement databases. Greer turned up the pressure. He interviewed Halden again, pointing out inconsistencies in his alibi. Halden grew defensive. "You're trying to pin this on me because I have money?" he spat. At the same time, Greer's team discovered Colton had been near the cliffs that night, his cell data placing him within a mile of the scene. Colton claimed he was just out walking, needing air. But Greer didn't buy it. Then came a second letter.
Whispers in the Fog. Chapter 1. The Vanishing at Blackstone Point. Greyhaven was a town cloaked in fog and secrets. Nestled against the rugged coast, its streets wound between weathered fishing shacks and old brick buildings that had seen better days. The ocean's restless voice was never far, a constant murmur beneath the town's quiet surface. Nora Blake, a 35-year-old investigative journalist, had arrived 6 months earlier. Drawn by rumors of a secretive group known as the Circle, said to manipulate powerful figures, she had dedicated herself to uncovering their influence. On October 14th, thick fog swallowed the lighthouse at Blackstone Point. Nora told her editor she was going for a last visit to gather photos and final details. She never returned. Her car was found near the cliff edge, engine running, door unlocked. Papers scattered, camera on the dashboard. No sign of Nora. Detective Marcus Hale arrived, noting no signs of struggle or footprints beyond the immediate area. Local fisherman Elijah Crane said he saw Nora head to the lighthouse, followed moments later by shadowy figures. The search began, but the fog seemed to guard its secrets. Chapter 2. Shadows and Whispers. Marcus Hale dug into Nora's notes and contacts. Her exposé had rattled Greyhaven's elite, revealing suspicious donations and backdoor meetings. But who were the true puppeteers? Elijah Crane, an enigmatic figure who'd lived on the outskirts for years, warned Marcus, "The Circle is old, darker than you think. They don't like prying eyes." Meanwhile, strange things happened. Townsfolk whispered of flickering lights at the lighthouse, strange symbols carved into wood, and disappearances of those who opposed the Circle.
Marcus found an unmarked USB drive in Nora's belongings. It contained encrypted files, potential evidence, but impossible to decode without the key. Chapter 3. The fog tightens. As days passed, the fog seemed thicker, swallowing sound and light. A local woman who'd helped Nora said she'd received threatening letters to stay silent. Marcus was pressured to drop the case. In secret, he met with Nora's colleague, Julia, who believed the circle's influence stretched into the police. Julia handed Marcus a coded diary Nora kept. The entry spoke of a secret meeting at the lighthouse the night she vanished, and mentioned a man named Victor, the group's suspected leader. Marcus returned to Blackstone Point. With the Coast Guard's help, he explored the lighthouse's hidden passages beneath its foundation. There, he found signs of recent habitation, burnt candles, old newspapers, and a hastily buried box. Inside the box were letters, photographs, and a small key labeled The Circle. As Marcus left, he felt eyes watching him through the fog. Chapter 5. The Broken Trust. In town, Marcus's investigation made waves. The mayor publicly denied any involvement with the circle, but avoided questions. A trusted officer in the police force warned Marcus to tread carefully, but soon after, that officer was found dead, ruled a suicide, though Marcus suspected foul play. The coded diary led Marcus to a local historian who revealed the circle's origins, rooted in Greyhaven's earliest days, built to protect the town's elite through silence and fear. Marcus finally traced Victor, a charismatic but ruthless businessman with ties to the town's wealthiest families. He discovered Victor held private meetings in an abandoned mansion on the outskirts, using coded messages and secret signs to communicate. Marcus attended one undercover, witnessing ritualistic ceremonies and whispered vows of loyalty. Chapter 7. A Glimmer of Hope. Julia cracked the encryption on Nora's USB drive, uncovering emails and recordings proving the circle's involvement in bribes, threats, and possibly Nora's disappearance. Marcus and Julia planned a raid, but Victor's reach was wide, and warnings came from unexpected places. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. The night of the raid was foggy, eerily silent. Marcus's team surrounded the mansion. Inside, Victor confronted Marcus, denying everything but taunting him with the town's secrets. A struggle ensued. Victor escaped into the night, but agents found Nora, alive but weak, in a hidden cellar, a prisoner of the circle. Chapter 9. Aftermath. Nora's return shook Greyhaven. Public outcry forced arrests of many circle members. Victor remained at large, but the town's grip on fear loosened. Marcus and Nora worked to expose remaining corruption. Chapter 10. Whispers Fade. Months later, Greyhaven's fog lifted, symbolizing a new beginning. Nora published a best-selling account of her ordeal. Marcus watched the lighthouse at dusk, knowing shadows linger, but hope shines stronger. The end. Telling a haunting secret late at night. The House on Calder Hill. Chapter 1. The Last Showing. The sky over Bellbrook that afternoon hung heavy with clouds the color of ash. A thin mist clung to the air, softening the edges of the town's weathered buildings. Up on Calder Hill, the mansion stood in silence, its crooked chimneys and cracked windows watching the valley like hollow eyes. Hannah parked her car at the end of the gravel drive. The tires crunched over loose stones, the sound loud in the quiet of the countryside. She killed the engine, took a deep breath, and stared at the house. Just another property, she told herself, though her stomach churned. The mansion had been abandoned for decades, left to rot after the wealthy Calder family fell into scandal and ruin. Now a distant heir had decided to sell it, and Hannah Lowell was tasked with handling the showing. The buyers were late, or perhaps they'd changed their minds about venturing to Calder Hill. Hannah stepped out of the car, boots sinking slightly into the damp ground. The wind tugged at her coat as she approached the gate, rust flaking beneath her gloved hand as she pushed it open. She hesitated on the threshold of the overgrown yard, staring at the house's dark facade. Paint peeled from the clapboard siding. A shutter banged softly against an upstairs window. Somewhere inside, a door creaked. The stories about this place floated through her mind, whispers of disappearances, of strange lights at night, of the house being cursed. Hannah wasn't one to believe in ghosts, but something about Calder Hill unsettled her. She shook off the feeling and crossed the yard. The key scraped in the lock. The door groaned as it opened, releasing a breath of stale, cold air. Hannah stepped inside, boots echoing on warped floorboards. The interior was just as she expected, draped in cobwebs, layered in dust, smelling of mildew and decay. A grand staircase rose to the second floor, its banister splintered and broken in places. She clicked on her flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom. "Hello?" she called, just in case the buyers had arrived unseen or some vagrant had taken shelter inside. Only silence answered. Hannah moved from room to room, taking mental notes for the listing. The place needed more than repairs. It needed a resurrection. In the dining room, a long table stood covered in a rotting sheet. In the parlor, a toppled chair lay where it had fallen decades before. Upstairs, the bedrooms were hollow shells, wallpaper curling from the walls like dead leaves. And then she saw it. A single set of muddy footprints leading down the hall toward the master bedroom. Fresh. Hannah froze. She hadn't seen them when she first arrived. Someone's here. Her heart pounded as she followed the prints, her flashlight trembling slightly. The prints ended at the master bedroom door. "Hello?" She tried again, voice tight. No answer. She pushed the door open. The room was empty, the footprints vanishing at the threshold as if whoever made them had stepped into nothingness. Outside, clouds thickened and dusk fell fast. When Hannah failed to return home that evening, her husband grew worried. Calls to her phone went unanswered. By nightfall, he drove up Calder Hill himself, headlights cutting through the fog. Her car was there, parked at the gate. The keys were still in the ignition. Her purse sat untouched on the passenger seat. But for Hannah, there was no sign. Detective Eli Grant was called in the next morning. New to Bellbrook, transferred from the city under a cloud of rumor, Grant had hoped for a quiet posting. Calder Hill changed that. He stood at the mansion's gate, hands in his pockets, studying the scene. "No signs of struggle," said the deputy beside him. "No tracks beyond her own and those muddy ones inside." Grant stared up at the house. It seemed to stare back, its empty windows like watching eyes. "We start at the beginning," Grant said. "Who was she meeting here? And why does it feel like this house has something to hide?" The wind carried the house's reply, the soft thud of a shutter, the creak of a door swinging in the breeze, and the whisper of secrets long buried on Calder Hill.
The Boy on Willow Road, a slow-burning true crime story in 10 chapters. Chapter 1. The Boy in the Road. It was just before dawn when the boy appeared on Willow Road. The mist clung low to the ground, softening the edges of the world. He stood barefoot in the middle of the empty lane, his clothes torn and dirty. His dark eyes stared into the dense woods, like he was watching something no one else could see. Local driver Helen Marsh spotted him as she made her early morning rounds. She stopped, heart pounding, and called the sheriff's office. The boy said nothing, not a word. He didn't respond to questions or offers of food, just stood there, motionless, as if waiting for someone. The town of Hollowbrook awoke to a mystery no one expected. Who was this boy? Where had he come from? And what had he seen? Chapter 2. Silent Secrets. The boy was taken to the county hospital for evaluation. Doctors noted his malnourishment and the deep scars on his arms. But the silence, that was the hardest to understand. He refused to speak, responding only with vacant eyes. Social workers placed him in a foster home with the Anders family. The boy would stare out the window for hours, watching the trees, never saying a word. It was weeks before he spoke his first words. When he did, they were whispered and broken. A name, Maggie. Who was Maggie, and why did the boy speak it like a prayer? Chapter 3. The Name in the Woods. Detective Sarah Calloway took the case. She searched local records, missing persons reports, anything connected to the name Maggie. She found a report from 3 years prior. A young girl named Maggie Saunders, missing since a stormy night in the woods near Willow Road. Sarah revisited the woods. The trees stood like silent sentinels, their branches tangled overhead. The earth was soft and wet beneath her boots. She found an old, rusted locket half buried in the mud, engraved with the letter M. Something terrible had happened here, and the boy might be the key to uncovering it. Chapter 4. Echoes of the Past. Sarah delved into Maggie Saunders' life. She was a bright girl, loved by her parents, but troubled by an absent father and whispered threats at school. Neighbors remember hearing raised voices from the Saunders home, strange footsteps in the night, and Maggie's sudden withdrawal. The boy's stories, fragmented and fearful, hinted at a hidden figure, someone who had been watching Maggie, waiting. Sarah knew the past was not done with Willow Road. Chapter 5. The Foster Mother. The Anders family became reluctant guardians of the boy. Mrs. Anders, gentle and patient, tried to coax the boy's memories, piecing together his broken words. He spoke of a small cabin, a locked room, and a man with cold eyes. One night the boy cried out in his sleep, calling for Maggie. The Anders knew this child carried a trauma deeper than any foster home could heal. Chapter 6. The Locked Cabin. Sarah's investigation led her to an abandoned cabin deep in the woods. The door was locked, but signs of recent activity were everywhere. Footprints, fire pits, makeshift bedding. Inside, she found scraps of clothing, a torn photograph of a girl, and a journal filled with paranoid scribbles. The cabin had been a prison, but who was the captor, and what had happened to Maggie? Chapter 7. Shadows in the Trees. The community's unease grew. Parents kept their children close.
Rumors spread of strange figures in the woods, of nighttime whispers and flickering lights. Sarah followed leads to a man named Victor Lane, a recluse with a criminal past, rumored to have lived near the cabin. Victor denied any connection to Maggie or the boy, but failed a polygraph test. Something about him didn't add up. Chapter 8: Breaking the Silence. After months of therapy, the boy began to tell his story fully. He spoke of Maggie's capture, of days spent in the cabin, of escape attempts and threats. He described Victor's cold, cruel nature and how Maggie had protected him, sacrificing herself so he could run. His voice cracked as he recounted the final night, a desperate flight through the woods. Chapter 9: Justice on Willow Road. Sarah and the sheriff's office moved in. They arrested Victor Lane at his secluded home, uncovering evidence tying him to the disappearance of Maggie and other missing children. Victor refused to confess, but the evidence was overwhelming. The community breathed a cautious sigh of relief, but the scars on Willow Road would not heal overnight. Chapter 10: New Beginnings. The boy was placed in a caring home, surrounded by those determined to help him heal. A memorial was held for Maggie Saunders, her name finally spoken aloud and remembered. Sarah stood at the edge of the woods, watching the sun rise over Willow Road. The past was dark, the wounds deep, but hope, fragile and bright, had begun to grow.
Ashwood was the kind of town where everyone knew your name, your family's story, and often your secrets, too. Nestled among towering oaks and endless fields, it was peaceful, or so it seemed. Clara Whitman had taught at Ashwood Elementary for over 15 years, beloved by students and colleagues alike. Her classroom was a haven of bright colors, orderly bookshelves, and a hand-painted mural of the town's history. But one Tuesday morning, the janitor found her slumped over her desk, the classroom door locked tight from the inside. No signs of forced entry, no obvious injuries. The official report said she'd suffered a fatal fall, an accident. Detective Lucas Reed wasn't convinced. As he stood in the doorway, the echoes of Clara's laughter and lessons seemed to haunt the empty room. And somewhere in the shadows, the truth waited to be uncovered. Chapter 2: Whispers Beneath the Surface. Detective Lucas Reed was new to Ashwood, but not new to the feeling that something beneath the calm surface of a small town was rotten. His first step was to speak to those closest to Clara. The school principal was somber, insisting Clara was meticulous and cautious. No enemies, no recent troubles, but his eyes told a different story, one of things unspoken. Lucas also met Mia Harper, who confided that Clara had seemed anxious in recent weeks. She said someone was watching her. She got strange letters, but she didn't want to alarm anyone. The letters were a breakthrough, threatening notes with cryptic warnings. Lucas obtained them from Mia, the words vague but chilling. Stop digging or you'll fall deeper. As he reviewed the letters, Lucas began to wonder what was Clara digging into and who wanted to stop her. Chapter 3: Secrets in the Shadows. Lucas sifted through Clara's personal files and emails. One thread led to a local land developer, Martin Graves, who had clashed with Clara over plans to demolish part of Ashwood's historic district, a project Clara had quietly opposed. Neighbors mentioned late-night meetings between Clara and a mysterious visitor. Lucas learned the visitor was a historian named Sarah Lang, researching the town's past, particularly a cold case from 20 years ago, the disappearance of a young girl, Emily Dawson. Clara had been looking into Emily's case and had found discrepancies in the police report. Was this the secret that had put her in danger? Chapter 4: The Disappearance. Emily Dawson vanished without a trace in 2004. The investigation had gone cold, officially closed due to lack of evidence. But Lucas found a torn page from a diary in Clara's desk. Emily had a secret admirer, someone with ties to prominent town figures. Lucas confronted Martin Graves, who denied involvement but was visibly shaken. Meanwhile, Sarah Lang revealed to Lucas that Clara had discovered old photographs that suggested Emily might have been seen with someone powerful shortly before her disappearance. The case was far from cold, and Clara's death might be connected. Chapter 5. Threats Escalate. Lucas received an anonymous call warning him off the case. The voice was distorted, but clear. "Stop digging, or you'll be next." Unfazed, Lucas pushed forward. He found a hidden compartment in Clara's desk containing more letters, this time from someone pleading for help, mentioning the shadows in Ashwood. Lucas began to connect dots. Clara's investigation, the land development plans, the unresolved disappearance, and the threats. Someone in Ashwood wanted the past to stay buried at any cost. Chapter 6. The Hidden Room. A search of Clara's house uncovered a secret room behind a bookshelf filled with her research on Emily Dawson and the Shadows, a rumored secret society in Ashwood rumored to protect the town's elite. The room also held a recorder with Clara's voice. She had planned to expose the Shadows and their connection to the town's darkest secrets. Lucas realized he was close, but danger was closing in fast. Chapter 7. Unmasking the Shadows. With Clara's recordings as a guide, Lucas confronted key figures in town, including Martin Graves and the mayor. Each denied involvement, but cracks appeared under pressure. Sarah Lang uncovered secret meetings at an old lodge where town elites gathered, swearing loyalty to the Shadows, a pact to protect their own, no matter the cost. Lucas knew exposing them would shake Ashwood to its core, but he also knew Clara's killer was among them. Chapter 8. A Deadly Game. Lucas's investigation put him in the crosshairs. His car was vandalized, and he was followed through the streets, but he refused to back down. Piecing together clues, Lucas discovered the pivotal truth. Emily Dawson had uncovered the Shadows' illegal land dealings before she vanished, and Clara had picked up where Emily left off. The mayor had ordered the original cover-up, and Martin Graves had carried out threats to silence anyone who interfered. Chapter 9. The Confrontation. In a tense showdown at the lodge, Lucas confronted Martin and his allies. Evidence from Clara's files and Sarah's research was enough to trigger a police raid. Martin tried to escape, but was caught. Under interrogation, he confessed to threatening Clara and to complicity in Emily's disappearance. The town's elite were forced into the light, and the Shadows' grip on Ashwood shattered. Chapter 10. Echoes Settled. Ashwood began to heal. Clara was honored for her courage, and Emily's case was reopened with new hope. Lucas, once an outsider, found his place in the town, respected and trusted. Though some scars remained, the whispers in Ashwood were finally silenced, and the Shadows receded, making way for light. The end.
The Vanishing at Cedar Hollow. Chapter 1. The Last Walk. Sarah Mitchell locked up the community center just past midnight. The quiet hum of the night surrounded her as she stepped out into the crisp air. The path home was familiar, a shortcut through the woods she'd taken countless times without incident. Her footsteps crunched softly on the leaf-strewn trail. The tall pines swayed gently in the breeze, shadows flickering beneath the moonlight. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her. By dawn, the town was awake with worry. Sarah hadn't come home. Her phone went straight to voicemail. The path showed no sign of disturbance, no footprints except hers. Detective Lucas Reed arrived as the search began. He felt the chill in the air and the heaviness that had settled over Cedar Hollow. Something was wrong. Chapter 2. The Search Expands. Search teams combed the woods, calling Sarah's name through the trees. Volunteers spread flyers across town. Lucas examined the trail, noting subtle details. A broken branch here, a scuff in the dirt there. Signs that someone had passed through recently, perhaps hurriedly.
The community center security footage showed Sarah leaving at 11:47 p.m., walking alone. Nothing else. No shadowy figures, no car headlights. But then a witness came forward, a man who'd seen a dark vehicle parked near the woods that night. Questions multiplied. Who had been watching? Chapter 3. Secrets Beneath the Surface. Lucas dug into Sarah's life. She was well liked, a pillar in the community. Yet behind her kind smile were whispered rumors, disagreements with a colleague, tense moments with a neighbor. He interviewed friends, family, co-workers. Everyone claimed they had no idea why anyone would want to harm Sarah. But Lucas sensed unease, half-spoken truths lurking beneath polite facades. Chapter 4. The Mysterious Caller. A phone call came in the middle of the night. A woman's voice, trembling, warned Lucas to stop looking into Sarah's disappearance. "Some things are better left buried," she said, and then hung up. The call led Lucas to an old case, a disappearance from years ago, never solved. Cedar Hollow's past was darker than anyone realized. Chapter 5. The Hidden Journal. In Sarah's apartment, Lucas found a hidden journal. Its pages revealed a woman grappling with fear, documenting strange incidents, threatening letters, late-night phone calls, feeling watched. One entry mentioned the man in the woods, a figure Sarah feared but couldn't name. Lucas realized this wasn't a random disappearance. Someone had planned this. Chapter 6. The Woods at Dusk. Returning to the woods, Lucas and the search team discovered a small clearing hidden from the main path. There, half buried beneath leaves, was a piece of fabric, part of Sarah's scarf. Nearby, faint footprints led toward a shallow stream. The trail vanished into thick brush. The woods held secrets, and Lucas was determined to uncover them. Chapter 7. The Town's Dark Corners. Lucas interviewed the town's residents more deeply. A bartender who saw a heated argument at the community center. A handyman who heard strange noises from a nearby cabin. He uncovered a network of lies and grudges. Jealousy over Sarah's promotion. Bitterness over old wounds. No one was above suspicion. Chapter 8. The Breakthrough. A tip from a truck driver changed everything. He'd seen a woman matching Sarah's description being forced into a van miles from town. Lucas coordinated a raid on an isolated property. Inside they found evidence, personal belongings, signs someone had lived there recently. But no Sarah. Chapter 9. The Confession. Pressure mounted. A local man, faced with mounting evidence, confessed to kidnapping Sarah. His motives twisted by obsession and rage. He led Lucas to where Sarah was hidden, a remote cabin deep in the woods. Sarah was alive, but traumatized. The town breathed a collective sigh of relief. Chapter 10. Healing and Farewell. Sarah's recovery was slow, the scars deep. The town rallied around her, but the darkness left its mark on Cedar Hollow. Lucas stood beneath the tall pines, the sun rising over the hills. The vanishing was over, but the echoes would linger.
Silent Witness. Chapter 1. The Cabin in the Woods. The dense pine forest whispered in the chill autumn wind, shadows stretching long beneath a slate-gray sky. Eva Monroe's cabin sat nestled deep in the woods near Crestfall, its weathered logs cloaked in moss and fading years.
Eva was an enigma to the town, a reclusive artist who rarely ventured beyond her property. She spent her days painting vivid, haunting landscapes, scenes that seemed to capture more than just nature, secrets, fears, things unseen. That morning, a neighbor's dog began barking uncontrollably near the cabin. When the homeowner, Tom Harris, went to investigate, he found the cabin door ajar and Eva lying motionless on the floor, a crimson stain spreading across her blouse. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, only the unfinished canvas on the easel, depicting a shadowy figure standing just beyond the tree line. Detective James Calloway arrived hours later, stepping carefully into the silent cabin. The chilling stillness pressed against him as his eyes settled on the painting. He knew this case would unravel more than a simple murder. It would unearth the town's darkest secrets.